Welcome to my new vlog. Apparently vlogs are trending the old style, and I'm old style, so that works out. This video is really an intro to my new series called Traumatism. Trauma, autism, traumatism. Some videos will just be trauma-based, some will be autism-based, and many will have the overlap discussed because every time I post a video where I say, this is internalized autism, someone says, I don't know, that sounds a lot like CPTSD. And the truth is, they're not wrong. But there can be a lot of difficulty in understanding these nuances and differences. And at the end of this, my goal is to educate, inform, and to validate you, and to also give you some takeaways you can truly really use to apply to your life. In some videos, I'm going to take you with me on sensory trips to talk about strategies and how to do things in the kitchen or at home or whatever it is. My goal is to use every video, whether it's trauma, an overwhelming sense of trauma, and or the way your brain deals with the universe one way or the other. That's our goal. So these are 12 signs that this is the series for you. And you're going to find that you probably relate to all of them, whether you are a person with trauma or autism or both. And that's the point, is to really talk about the overlap. And as we dive into research and other people that talk about these topics, to help and support each other. Okay? So if you're new here, I'm a licensed psychologist. I'd love for you to join. And this is going to be exciting. I need some new excitement. It's been a lot. Many of you know when I'm not here, there is going on in my life. I was at the ER again with my daughter on Mother's Day weekend. The good news is this time it was only a night and not 6 to 10 days in the hospital, so we will take it. And she was able to go to prom because she's graduating. So I'm trying to focus on the good, but because of my own brain and trauma, I have been in a state of burnout that frankly was kind of scary. It's kind of scary. But I also realized at 57 and reading a book called What My Bones Know About Complex PTSD, I highly recommend it, is that I have a lot to share, and I want to share with you in any way that I can that helps you feel more seen and more understood, not just here, but in your own life, and most importantly, within yourself. Number 1, you have a history of trauma. Relational trauma, single event trauma, most likely you have both. Number 2, you have some form of neurodivergence. Everything from, most likely, trauma, of course, but really we're talking really here about autism, but it can also include ADHD traits or subclinical traits. If you are autistic, it's especially likely you might also have ADHD, and so we're going to talk about that. Regardless of whether your traits are sort of subclinical, they're not technically enough to diagnose, it's important to talk about. The reason why trauma and autism are so deeply intertwined is that to be autistic is to almost inherently have trauma. And because of the way the DSM has been written around what is traumatic and what's even been studied in terms of things like the adverse childhood experiences for people who are not autistic, autistic people are more likely to have trauma but to be underdiagnosed. And so that's why it also matters. Number 3, you have some significant challenges related to your sensory sensitivities. You are someone who thought or think you are an HSP. You're highly sensitive to sights, smells, sounds, the world, whatever it is, in some fashion. On the lower end, if it's trauma related, they're going to be more trauma triggered or specific. And on the autistic end, you have a more pervasive sensory profile of sensitivities, though you might have much stronger ones in some areas and not in others. Hi, she can come home. Thank you. Okay, no worries. Thank you. Okay, bye. Bye. That was my daughter needing to come home from school. I already knew that the school was calling, and the nurse was laughing because we were like this, right? Okay. But the point is there are sensory issues, and they're quite disruptive to your life. And so this is one of the bigger ones, though, when we start to push into trauma versus autism, that I will really kind of get spicy about, because the trauma-related ones are going to be triggered through the trauma. Or related to in some way. Whereas for autistic people, you don't need a trauma to have these sensory issues. And I would argue they're much more, the breadth and depth is much more significant. Number 4, social interaction issues, right? So the way you communicate, the way that you express yourself socially, from social anxiety to social cue issues to like not understanding the way the rules go or nuances. This can definitely happen with autism most. Now, within trauma, it's more about the social stuff is really more about through the lens of being rejected, triggered, not accepted. Now, if you have an autistic brain and you were traumatized socially, which is also very likely, of course you have that too, but we're talking about for a minute pretending like they're separate. The point is you're going to have issues around the way you engage. Maybe you isolate after socializing. Even if you are a socially motivated autistic person, it's gonna take its toll. But even with trauma, but with trauma, right? If you have a lot of rejection, you were shamed, social anxiety, you weren't taught social and emotional cues, that can happen too, and we're going to talk about it. But you have an issue there. Number 5, emotional dysregulation. You have inside big high highs and low lows that even if no one ever sees and they are internalized, you experience it. Whether it's walking around feeling low-key, hurt at people because you're resentful and you don't speak up for yourself because you avoid conflict, whether it's because you essentially don't know how to manage the flood of emotions that your brain and body are triggering, there's a struggle there. Like I said, you might be a very outwardly presenting like this person's fine, but you know that when no one else is around, you cry a lot, you're super anxious, you feel overwhelmed, you isolate to manage because your nervous system gets so elevated or shut down. Number 7, my absolute favorite, hypervigilance. From regular old hypervigilance and PTSD to chronic hypervigilance. We need hypervigilance. We need to know when that lion is about to come down that mountain. But when you live in a state of chronic hypervigilance, it's like there are lions everywhere and you're nowhere even outside, right? It's the possibility of danger that occurs, the potential for danger, as opposed to just the appropriate nervous system reactivity to a lion. Okay, it's like there are lions everywhere. We'll talk about that. Number 8, executive functioning difficulties. Whether you are an over-organizer, an under-organizer, a planner, can't plan to save your life, right? Whatever it is, impulsivity, and some level in both trauma and autism, we can see these. But once again, the trauma part could have impacted, whether it's actual trauma affecting your brain in terms of memory issues and or autism, where this idea that you can simultaneously be, needing to control and predict, but also not good at organizing other things or strategies because you have that ADHD flavor, there's gonna be something there, and we're gonna talk about that. So if you have challenges there, that can be both trauma and autism related. Number 9, intimacy issues, both trauma and autism, similar and different. Of course, when you have a trauma experience, whether it's being without clothing, right, from being vulnerable and your body issues, or to trusting someone in an intimate way, both vulnerability and being naked, right, something like that, and or autistic, where that can happen too, but a lot of it is also could be the sensory issues, the sights, the smells, the taste. There's a lot of sensory stuff that goes on when you don't have your clothes on with somebody else or some others, right? And so that can be a deterrent, let alone everything else going on. So intimacy issues, even like being judged to be avoidant through the attachment theory when actually you're autistic, right? And so there's a lot of stuff there we're going to get to. Number 10 is sleep issues. Can't sleep, can't stay asleep, you name it, we got it. Both of those, nightmares, flashbacks, insomnia, heart, mind racing, overthinking, overfeeling. We're going to talk about those, but if that's something you've struggled with. And number 11 is your nervous system, right? So whether it's you live in fight or flight, or you live in a shutdown state, you also have to realize as an autistic person, you might be in hypervigilant state, fight or flight, shut down, this is also true for trauma, shut down because that's kind of how you get immobilized, but then have to fake being masked, fake being present, fake being nice, which is actually forcing you to be in that ventral vagal. So you're actually in the sympathetic, your fight or flight, the parasympathetic, you're shutting down, but in the middle of all of that, you have to find that part of you to fake social connection, right? Which is a very typical autistic thing. And one of the things that Stephen Porges initially didn't recognize, that, he initially said you couldn't fake social connection. It's like, have you ever met an autistic person? Which I believe now he has readjusted all of that. So that's the point. All of that's going on. think about how draining that is. Why you might want to recover for 5 days after socializing, or like me, not socialize hardly at all. Okay, and the last one is feeling like an alien. And this can be in all kinds of ways. And as I used to think it was only because of complex trauma. Oh, I'm Kimmy from, don't you call me that, from the apartment complex. My cousins always called me that, little Kimmy, which I freaking hated. But I had all this shame. My mom was a lot to handle. She was embarrassing. Whatever it was, I wanted to be like in the little picket fence house with the normal daisies out front. And I see my kids talk about other families who are not divorced where we live, and I get that. It's like you're pressing your nose against the glass. But it was more than that. It was my entire life. It was being misperceived by my own mother at times, being accused of things that my autistic brain could never even fathom, like I just couldn't do, to not being known, to being told I had a strong personality back when I didn't do any of this, and I thought I was not advocating enough, and shy, like so shy, crying so much in childhood, like forever, being punished for crying. I'm going to talk about that in the next video, I think, for parents who struggle from trauma to autism. So if you have those things, we're going to dive into what those are and the nuances in both trauma and autism, and or both. And I hope you will join me. So thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to share my new kind of vlogging style videos, like I said, where I'm going to take you with me around the house or in the kitchen or in the car, and just always try to give you something that is helpful to help accommodate and love and provide self-compassion and maybe some tools that will help you. So I hope you will join me and follow me, and I will see you soon. Have a good day. Bye.